Gender role. We know that gender roles are the character that we are expected to show in our society. It is the traits of how we act, speak, dress, and group ourselves. But do you know that these gender norms or roles affect women more often than men? Because women are commonly expected to be mothers, wives, and caretakers. The expected working environment for them is mostly related to beauty and fashion. But what are the things that we don't know about this matter? And this is Nikita S. Alsana from Group 16, and to learn more regarding this matter, continue watching.
Good day, everyone. So I am Marjo Asulorio. I will be the first reporter to tackle about the women in Western art, the female objectification. Women are constantly being made objects of one's viewing pleasure. Whether anyone is looking at them or not, women have taken in this awareness as though looking at themselves through another's eye. They are made the objects of men's desires or have learned to scrutinize themselves using the standards of other women. So it means this chapter will discuss about the importance of topic of representation and perception of women in arts. Next is the viewing of another person as an instrument to be used for sexual goals is also known as the objectification. So it means that women who are objectified are viewed as less than fully human, perceived to have less of a mind for thoughts or decisions, and viewed as less deserving of more treatment by others. So I have the examples. So the painting of Paul Rubens, The Judgment of Paris. So it presents a strong starting point for the study of women in Western art. So this painting depicts a scene from Greek mythology in which the most beautiful man, who is Paris, was made to choose the most beautiful goddess among Aphrodite, Hera, and Athena. So after Paris must claim that he cannot judge them with clothes on, each goddess stripped naked, and then he scrutinized each goddess thoroughly. Next is the male gaze. So the idea of looked-at-ness was discussed in Laura Mulvey's essay, The Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. So Mulvey discusses a Freudian term called psychophilia, in which the act of looking has become a form of pleasure. So psychophilia is associated with thinking other people, subjecting them to controlling and curious gaze. Women in particular are objectified and subjected to this gaze. So it means that the male gaze, as Mulvey discusses, it derives the pleasure from this sexual imbalance in which the male looks for pleasure and the woman finds pleasure in being looked at. Next is artist Phoebe Mills puts Mulvey discussion about the male gaze, wherein it stated that the female nude is arguably the most dominant subject in art history, and traditionally the painter is male. So the male gaze, looking onto his female subject, enhances and masks certain areas of the female form in order to succumb to the visual desires of his female viewers.
Good day, everyone. I'm going to talk about women in advertising. So, women in advertising is a term that is used to refer to the representation of women in advertising, marketing, and in other forms of media. It is also a reflection of the roles of women in society and how they are portrayed in the media. So, media and advertising play an important role in our culture and reflecting the social norms of our society. Also, the representation of women in advertising has changed over the decades, with the 50s and 60s showing women in the kitchen or managing the family, and in the 70s and 80s portraying women as sex symbols or unattainable versions of perfection. And the insight about the display of the female nude is true, not only for art, but for every medium where women are displayed. Women are often presented as sex objects in advertisements, even for products that have nothing to do with their sexuality and bodies. Example of these are the advertisements in cars, um, alcoholic beverages, cigarettes, vacation spots, and sport feature women to some degree of being underdressed. But in recent years, there has been an increased awareness of how women are portrayed in advertising, and this can have an impact on the way women are seen and treated in society. So this has led to a push for more positive representation of women in advertising, as well as for greater gender equality in the media industry. So here's a chart with 9 out of 10 girls saying they compare themselves to images in the media. So it is vital that brands and marketers take responsibility for representing women in a modern and positive manner. But beyond doing the right thing for society, is there a benefit from shifting the portrayal of women in advertising for brands in terms of creative effects? While doing good for society, can brands simultaneously improve their business outcomes? If women are not made accessories to certain products, they are made targets for numerous commercials, and these advertisements are designed to make someone feel bad. In order to transform women into consumers of various products, commercials tell women that they are grossly inadequate and need to be more beautiful in order to be worthy of a man's love and support. So here's an example of an ad trying to change perceptions comes from a Nike campaign in Russia entitled "What Are Girls Made Of?", which added a modern twist to a well-known children's song. The traditional Russian song said girls were made of flowers and gossip, neither of which inspired girls to be confident, independent, and strong. So there are many examples of women making an impact in the advertising industry. One example is Cindy Gallop, who has been a force in the advertising world since the 1990s. She is the founder of If We Run the World and Make Love Not Porn, which are two companies that are changing the way we think about and interact with advertising.
Women in film and the film industry. According to a report by the Center for the Study of Women in Televisions and Films, only 33% of speaking roles and 34% of identifiable leading characters in Hollywood films were played by women. A 2013 study by Annenberg School for Communications and Journalism of the University of Southern California says 31.6% of women would be portrayed as wearing sexy clothes versus 7% of men, and 31% partly nude versus 9.4% of men, and younger women were more likely to be sexualized. One important reason for these statistics is that only 5% of directors were women in 2011, and they only do romance, comedies, and documentaries. Movies crafted by men get bigger budgets, and thus gross more in sales. But as a result, women's perspectives are not presented on the screen. In fact, when women's characters are portrayed, they are less likely to be shown as doing something or doing some identifiable occupation, doing actual work. More men, or 60% of them, have identifiable goals and work related activities in the film. Many studies about Hollywood and gender show that the film industry is dominated by men. Male directors, writers, and producers make movies whose leading characters are men and whose stories are that those interest men. And so, a vast majority of movies are about cops and spies, political intrigue in the realms of business and politics, and historical dramas and disasters where men are shown as the drivers of action. Men save the day or find resolution. Women and sexualization. Fundamentally, women in films and advertising are highly sexualized and reduced to their bodies. The body becomes a woman's self worth. However, when impossible standards are determined according to demands of profits and perhaps the maintenance of patriarchal values, oppression occurs. Media as a way of defining the way a person perceives reality and oneself. Even men and boys, when exposed to the idea that women's fulfillment is to be desired and owned by men, would treat women accordingly. The American Psychological Association did a study on the sexualization of women in media and arrived at very disturbing findings. According to the report, sexualization is understood to occur when, first, a person's value comes only from his or her sexual appeal or behavior, to the exclusion of other characteristics. Second, a person is held to a standard that equates physical attractiveness with being sexy. Third, a person is sexually objectified, that is, made into a thing for others' sexual use, rather than seen as a person with the capacity for independent action and decision making. And lastly, sexuality is inappropriately imposed upon a person. Based on this definition of sexualization, they came up with these findings. Cognitively, self-objectification has been repeatedly shown to detract from the ability to concentrate and focus oneself or one's attention, thus leading to impaired performance on mental activities such as mathematical computations or logical reasoning. Research links sexualization with three of the most common mental health problems of girls and women: eating disorders, low self-esteem, and depression or depressed mood.
Beauty as a weapon against women. There are a lot of hindrances to women regardless of their life status when it comes to showing and expressing of themselves due to the beauty standards that the people in the society had put them. Female models, designers, and even the editors for the beauty magazines shows the what we call the beauty standards or the ideal women. According to Naomi Wolf, in her work The Beauty Myth: How Images of Beauty Are Used Against Women, that an individual, specifically women, need to present themselves in accordance to the beauty standards of the Western media. Internationally speaking, this is an unavoidable mindset of the beauty standards to women. And we know that those standards are to prevent women to be free. These are the commonly beauty standards that they perpetuate. First is the thinness, the most common beauty standard that we know, in which some women intentionally starve themselves just not to gain weight, that causes to have an effect to their physical and mental health. The second is aging. We can see that many women value their youthfulness very much, that they are willing to spend a lot of money to consult for a dermatologist, to undergo therapy, treatment, and even surgery to keep looking young. And third is the body shape. It is similar to the first and second example, since many women would spend hours to exercise and even undergo surgery just to have the vital statistics of 36, 24, 36, or the what they call an ideal or hourglass-shaped body. And failure to have these standards causes them unemployment, and some even loses their job since some company requires their women employees to look young and must dress up and wear makeup. It is mostly applicable to the female models, actresses, and even with just a mere company employee. This beauty myth may be natural and universal, but it causes anxiety to those women who doesn't possess any of these traits. Beauty and the Western ideal. We can observe from the videos that we can see online about the beauty standards in our countries, especially in Western countries, we can see that because of these standards, some people are being judged or discriminated, and people from the Philippines often experience this. When the Caucasians have displaced and marginalized the people that they colonized, we can see that those people often have a darker skin and darker hair. Because for them, the characteristics of being colored means less powerful. During the colonization, colored people are forced to be submissive with white people because for them, whiteness is a class in which associates with being privileged compared to those colored people. But in today's era, there are still some discrimination towards people who are colored, and we hope that the next generation could not adapt that.
Proclaiming the media. It is necessary to offer alternative vision on womanhood to the public for their own reflection. To break the monopoly of the media by companies that represent sexualized, objectified women as product, it is necessary to support campaign with alternative perspective on womanhood. Despite decades-long efforts from female journalists, broadcasters, writers, editors, and other media professionals, a gap persists in the representation and employment of women across all forms of media. The imbalance is even starker for female media professionals who are otherwise marginalized, like women of color, women with disabilities, and women who identify as a part of the LGBTQ community. Woman empowerment. Empowerment seems to be the way forward. Women should be empowered so that they will be able to tell their own stories. Concretely, equal access of women to the mechanism of communal storytelling and image creation must be provided. In other words, give more women access to mass media. Women should be equally funded in their endeavors to make movies, produce magazines, create books, and create arts that speak of their own experience. Inclusive community. Societies should make a choice to invest in the works of women that present an image that is different from those shown through objectifying narrative and discourse. It is important as well to have a training programs that will help men and women understand how media is creating a destructive objectification of women. There should be a process of raising awareness to help people understand how ideologies and values shape the way and individually understand the world.
Beauty standards are all fake. Our color, body shape, and physical appearance should not define our value in the society. Many women experience anxiety and depression just because of these unattainable standards that the society had put to them.
I'm Rita S. Osona and I believe in women.
I am Maria Joy Acelario, all in for equality.
I'm Andrea Kate Sibiliarias and I stand for women.
I'm Victor Marito Studio and I believe equality is for all.
I'm Giancarlo Pizarol and I support women.